I started covering the Dodgers in 2007, and since then, you two guys really kind of helped set the standard, I feel, for baseball writing in this country. So, for you guys to endorse our hirings, and for me to now get to be a teammate of yours, that to me is the most exciting part here. And Jack and I will get to work pretty soon here.
Tommy, just for what it's worth, that's the social media clip right there. If,
I
if
would,
you, if you need to make a social media clip,
it's
that's as nice as it's going to get. And by the way, we might just end the damn show right here also. So
Dylan number one and brown nosing.
next week, the New York Post is starting an exciting new venture. January 26th, the California Post begins. It will be our sister newspaper. It's going to have, I think, great everything, but perhaps greatest of all will be its Dodger coverage. Jack Harris is going to be from the LA, who's leaving the LA Times for us, is going to be the beat writer. Dylan Hernandez, who's leaving the LA Times for us, will be the columnist. And this week they join us on the show, John.
Yeah, it's going to be great having Jack and Dylan on. They're both fantastic journalists, and looking forward to hearing what they have to say about the Dodgers, who do not stop trying to win. I'll say that about the New York Post too. The California Post is going to be spectacular. I can't believe that there's a newspaper actually expanding now. We got to pat ourselves on the back for that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We're going to ask Jack and Dylan all about what the Dodgers are up to. Tucker, Ohtani, Diaz. Are they still going after Peralta and Skubal? What could go wrong with the team? I'm sure we'll ask that has everything. John and I have a lot to break down in New York. Bellinger, what's up there? Tucker, why it didn't happen. Bichette, Robert. We'll talk Hall of Fame at the end if you stick with us on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman. John, we got at least a lot of news this week, especially involving the Mets. They didn't land Kyle Tucker. They tried awful hard. 4 at 220 they offered. He went to the Dodgers for 4 at 240 with deferrals. It seems like everybody who's going to have that choice is maybe going to end up a Los Angeles Dodger before the end. The Mets pivot out of it is Bo Bichette. And then last night, we're doing this on Wednesday morning. Last night, they traded for Luis Robert Jr. John, you're on record. Everybody should go. John always does such a great job at nypost.com or buy the newspaper. You like the pivot away from Tucker to Bichette. Go read that column. We'll get your thoughts on it here. I wonder if I could ask you the bigger question. Do you like the pivot in general, and I mean the winter pivot? The Mets started with let's talk about the positional group. The Nimmo, McNeil, Alonso group, and where they are now, which is Polanco, Bichette, Robert, Simeon.
Yeah, I'm not going to trash it at this point. I think they're only half done, right? I think they've improved the defense. They did do that. I think they have a decent lineup, but where's the pitching? I'm still waiting for the pitching, right? We have too many question marks in that rotation, right? Even if you assume McLean is something close to what he showed, which was spectacular, and Manaea can bounce back. You've got Peterson in there as well, but we don't know what Senga is. Tong may be a year or two away. We're not sure where he stands. Sprode, I think, is a good pitcher, but is he a reliever? So still a lot of questions there. I think they're thin in the bullpen. I think they still have work to do. It's nice that Las Vegas thinks they're a winning team. At this point, I think they'll have to fight to get into the playoffs in what we think, again, is a better league. We didn't expect 84 wins or 83 wins to get in last year. I don't expect it to get in this year. It should have been lucky for the Mets. They should have gotten in easily, but they didn't. So I think they're half done. They need pitching. You can't go in there with McLean as your ace who's thrown 10 games. I just think they need more pitching. So right now I'd give them an incomplete.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, John. But I also believe, like I think it's been like foolhardy, and I understand that there's a certain yell radio, yell TV, social media, like either stupidity or purposeful stupidity, because it's a great lane to be in, to act like David Stearns and Brian Cashman are morons who don't know what they're doing. Like I assume David Stearns knows, what he's doing here, and he's going to get pitching. I mean, I would be shocked, right? If they don't trade for Peralta, does the Bichette thing allow them to put Beatty and pitching prospects in for Skubal? Do they try to get the short-term deal on Framber? Like, I mean, John, I would just be I guess I wouldn't use shocked, right? Because we've all been shocked by stuff. But I would be at least mildly surprised if the Mets do not add a starter of some heft between now and, if not the Super Bowl, which is the beginning of spring training, is the next day for them, is February 9th. If between now and the beginning of the season, I think they'll get on the board there, and I do think they'll get another reliever or two. I mean, do you believe in your kind of like baseball soul that that is going to happen? That this is not the end game.
Right. I mean, there are three great starters left. If they get one of them, I'm going to give them a good grade for this winter, despite the slow start. Right. We've got Skubal, who may not get traded, so it's really 2.5. Right. Peralta, who we think is going to get traded. We have Framber, who will get a deal somewhere. So that's at least three great starters out there. Gore seems to be out there as well. I don't like him as much as the other three. That's not negative. The other three are outstanding. You've got Gallen as a possibility too. If they get one of the top three, though, that they're in good shape. If McLean's your two, Peterson's your three, and then you've got a bunch of possibilities for 4 and 5, I think that's a typical market rotation. Right now, they don't have that. I'm still concerned about that bullpen because there were about 10 closers on the board, and they ended up with Devin Williams instead of the guy who was the best in the league in Diaz. So I'm still concerned about the bullpen. It's still not going to be perfect, but if they get one of those three, I will stop trashing them, at least for the moment.
Yeah, I'm actually I agree with you to the three. I might like Zach Gallen a little more than most people. I think Zach Gallen's
No, I like him. I like him.
yeah,
I'm with
like
you. I like him. Yeah, that would help. I mean, but to me, get one of the top three so we can push McLean down, right? If you get Gallen, McLean's still your ace on
yeah.
10 games, right? Or how many you ever pitched.
Yeah, and look, they added Luke Weaver also, who I think they think will probably, is a closer type who will pitch in the last 6 outs of the game for them. But John, I'm with you. I think, and again, the offseason's an evolving situation, but I think the Diaz decision looks worse with time because if and I think both of us thought it was a bad decision then not to show the love instantly and make it clear to his camp, we will even outbid the Dodgers. We will not let you go. Like I think the fact that they didn't do that, like he didn't come, he's a qualified offer player, but he doesn't come with compensation for them. They were willing, think about what they were willing to do for Tucker and Bichette, who are qualified offered guys, where they're pushing and pushing. This is a guy you know. This is a guy you know could work in your clubhouse on the field. And, if we lined up all the closers, it's not a hard case to make that he's the best in the world, the second, the third. He's in the small group of guys. I still see that as the mistake of the offseason. And it looks worse when they're willing to do the things they were willing to do for Bichette and Tucker and ultimately land Bichette. I think that is the mistake of their offseason.
Yeah, I'm not going to go on for a long time about this. I think we both covered this 100 times. It's clearly the mistake. I mean, why not give them that extra year? I don't care what your computer says. I don't care what the analytics people say. This is relatively cheap for a star and a closer and a guy with entertainment value, a guy the fans loved, a guy who was good. I get you want to change the clubhouse up, even if you're not admitting that. That's not the guy to remove from the clubhouse. He's not a problem in any way. He was a plus. So yeah, that was the obvious mistake. I mean, I guess the analytics people aren't going to pat you on the back if you give a fourth year to a 30-plus-year-old closer, but the guy's a star, and now we're talking about now offering $220 million to a guy who was basically kicked out of Chicago. Nobody, they didn't want him, right? I mean, he's obviously Tucker is a great player. The Dodgers have, make very few mistakes. The guy got 50% more than Aaron Judge. 50%. You can't. It doesn't make any sense to me. That deal made no sense. To avoid that, I think that's the highlight of the winter for me. Avoiding giving Tucker a $60 million deal. They have a left-handed hitting right. I've been over this too. They have a left-handed hitting right fielder. He's gonna have to change positions. We don't know how good he'd be in New York. Chicago didn't love him. That's a pretty big city. Obviously he's a great player, but he's a great complimentary player. He's not a $60 million player.
Yeah, I think you and I have been down this road also that I think Tucker is a best supporting actor who's like war numbers, like make people think he's a star. He has not seemed to want that mantle. And I think you and I covered plenty of Astro-Yankee series, both postseason and regular season, that were very heated over the last 5 to 10 years when he was there. And you would leave a series and you would not, you'd talk about Altuve and Correa and Bregman and Alvarez. To me, he's a co-star. He ended up in the right place. He's in Hollywood, a co-star to a cast that has plenty of stars that will allow him to be the co-star. John, before we,
You know what? That would have been true. Any of
with
these
Soto
teams.
and Lindor also, but I think
Lindor and Soto,
there.
Vladimir Guerrero's the star. We covered the World Series. We know that he's the star. Yeah, obviously in LA, he's the fifth guy, like he kind of was in Houston.
Yeah.
It's bizarre to me that the fifth guy is going to make as much as the guys 1 through 4 combined, at least take home pay, because we're counting Ohtani as $2 million at this point. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to question anything that the Dodgers do. They do everything great.
Well, it makes sense for them. It may, like, you know what I
Well,
mean?
they make
Like,
so much money on
they make so
Ohtani that
much
they can
money.
afford it. But I mean, it doesn't. You know more about basketball than I do, and Scottie Pippen was upset forever. I don't think Mookie and these other guys who are making a fraction of what Tucker and Meg are going to complain. But I don't. It's not. It doesn't send the right message to me to give $60 million to the complimentary player. Not worth it if you already have the best team, in my opinion. But who am I to criticize the Dodgers? They're basically batting 1,000.
Yeah, yeah. And look, he had 10 at 350 on the board for the Blue Jays, which would have felt more proper average value
Yeah,
wise.
he obviously didn't want to go there. Remember that? That's been going on for 2 months.
Yeah.
That was my concern about them from the beginning, not the beginning, but from 2 weeks
I
in.
think they could have gotten him if they
You think
offered
so?
more. I do. I think they didn't want to go over the AAV of Vlad.
Yeah, maybe the
Uh,
400, which is what was kind of
yeah,
predicted by some people, not us, but some people
yeah.
predicted. I was close to 400. So, I guess did he not want to? I don't know. I mean, it seemed like it was a good spot. It's a great team. It's in Dunedin. He lives in Tampa. Seemed like it. But I mean, if you can join the Dodgers, as Diaz did, right? Why not join the Dodgers? I mean, it's a great place, and he probably thinks it's laid back. I think he'll find out it's not. But
Yeah, John, before we flip to Bellinger, who's was of interest to at least both teams, we'll see what Luis Robert does with the Mets. Let's just because it happened so recently. I like the Luis Robert Jr. gamble. Because if he's nothing but what he's been the last couple of years, and you hope healthy, he hasn't been healthy the last 2 years. But if he's nothing but homers, stolen base, defense, and can hit lefty pitching, it helps the Mets. And he is not far removed from a guy who was a 5+ WAR player in 2023 who finished 12th for the AL MVP, and he's 28. And in this situation, to your point, like in Chicago, he has to be like, man, you've got to be the star in this terrible place. With the Mets, he's going to hit what, fifth, sixth, something like that. And you could say, hey, everything you bring on offense is a little bit of gravy. We want you for the run prevention. We want you for the athleticism on the bases, and certainly to bring diversification against lefties. I think it's a worthwhile $22 million gamble for the Mets if you have Steve Cohen's money. What do you think?
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I like Chicago better than you. I don't know about terrible, but I get it.
Well, I mean, the White, no, not the city of Chicago.
They're not a good
have
team.
People with pitchforks. I mean, the White Sox the last 4 years have 324 losses. It's the third most ever. So I mean,
wow, good stat. A good stat. I like that. They're improving, and
Yes,
give them
I
credit
agree.
because when they picked up that option, I'm like, what are they doing? And remember last July when teams, not just the Mets, but all the teams that were talking about him, they're like, well, this is a guy who's a rental. Nobody's picking up his option. The White Sox aren't picking up his option. We're not picking up his option. Well, they did. They surprised everyone, and they basically stole Luis Acuna and another minor league pitcher for it. Now, Luis Acuna, as you wrote today in your column today, he doesn't really have a place with the Mets. They got about 50.
And he's out of options.
Right, and you got Jet Williams coming. You got Beatty still there. He can play second. It makes sense at this time, and you're right. He does, even at his worst, he does hit lefties. He is a good defender. He does have speed. He certainly can play center. That will allow Benj to play left. It is kind of funny that Beatty is the one guy they were happy with, who was a regular player defensively, and they talked about run prevention, and they've thrown him out of third base. Now he's at probably out of left field, right? Because we think Benja's got a good shot at left field. He keeps getting moved. He got moved from third to second, back to third, but now to left. I don't know. Is he part-time first baseman at this point? I'm not sure what he is, but to me, he's good trade bait. If they want to get a starter, at least the start of it. You're not going to get Peralta. You're not going to get, excuse me one second. You're not going to get Peralta. You're not going to get Skubal for Beatty. But if you have two or three other guys with them, you might. And maybe that's the plan now. But it is kind of funny that Beatty, who was the plus defender, other than Torrens and Taylor, he was their only plus defender on the team and a regular player, and now he's out of a position twice.
Yeah. John, I woke up thinking about this morning again. There's just one last thought on the Mets, which was, Bichette seemed signed, sealed, and delivered to the Phillies. I think the Phillies indicated they were willing to do the long-term numbers that Bichette wanted. And the Mets kind of stormed in there after the Tucker failure and got him away. I also think of it as if I could have Adolis Garcia for 10 or Luis Robert for 22, who I think were kind of like 2 years ago, we thought way different of those two players and their athleticism, what it meant, their similar age kind of stuff. I think Robert at 22 for a year is a better gamble than Garcia, partially because I get the center field of it. So like it's a little bit feels like a Philly thing for me also, where Bichette doesn't end up on the Phillies, hurts them who just won the division. And if you told me the Mets at the beginning of the offseason could have Robert or Dallas Garcia as the right-hand guy in the outfield, I would take Robert even with the extra money because I'm Cone. I wonder what you think about that. Because again, I woke up
Yeah,
thinking about it
Robert can play center. Yeah, I would take the fielder. I would take
Yeah.
the defense at this point. They both have really gone downhill quite a
Yes.
bit, but they obviously worth something. 22 million is a lot of money for Robert, but he does bring a lot, as you said, right? He hits lefties, he plays center, his defense is good, he has speed. Even at his worst, he's going to should be at least
Needs to
a
stay
two
healthy.
WAR player.
Yeah.
You think? I don't know. So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, John, just quickly before we move on here from our lead block, Cody Bellinger is the last kind of man standing, the best position player left on the market with Bichette and Tucker signed. I think we're both on record for how much we like this player. I mean, I love this player when he was with the Cubs and available, and I was pushing and saying the Yankees have to go get him. He turned out to be what I thought, a Swiss Army knife who helps in every day in every way, on the bases, in the field, multiple positions, great in the clubhouse, willing to, telling Aaron Boone, just build the lineup and tell me where I am to your best benefit, and I'm good. That's the thing. The Yankees are clearly on the board, and they're at 5 at 160 from what I understand, with two opt-outs in it. Does the Robert thing, you think, take the Mets out of Bellinger and kind of clear this even more for the Yankees? And because I feel like this is the Yankee move. If the Yankees don't get him at like 32 a year, my gut is Hal Steinbrenner allows another 10 or 15 million in spending total. Like I don't think there's 32 million for him to spend. Like I think that Hal is making a special deal. Like if for Bellinger, I'll expand. If not, you can go do Austin Hayes or Harrison Bader and one more reliever, and then we're going to line up and play baseball.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to eliminate any teams because you never know until a deal's done. But it feels like he should be a Yankee, right? I don't know where else the Yankees go, as you kind of referenced there. It's pretty clear that that's the guy for them. And for him, I would think, yeah, he wants. My impression is he wants to go back. And whenever I asked him what he wants to do, he wants to be with a winner. Well, the Yankees won 94 games. They may not have satisfied the fans, but I think the players will acknowledge this is a good team, and it should be better, right? With Cole for most of the season, with Schlittler now for the full season. I know they have done very little, signing a bunch of $2 million players, but they're going to have guys who are key guys for the entire season, presumably. This should be an excellent team, no matter what whether the fans are dissatisfied that they haven't done any action or whatever. I think that this is the team for him. This is the one that makes sense. You hear there's a couple more teams still in it, but he should be a Yankee. He really should. I would think at this point we're at the point where it should get done, in my opinion.
Well, Cody won a MVP while a member and a championship while a member of the Los Angeles Dodgers. If you know it or not, the New York Post is starting the California Post next week, January 26th. We're going to end up having just brilliant Dodger coverage with Jack Harris and Dylan Hernandez, and they're going to join us next on the show. Look, for those of you who don't know, the New York Post is expanding. We're starting the California Post on January 26th. And I say this in all sincerity. I think we're going to have a great sports department there, cover the LA teams great. And I know we're going to cover the Dodgers great. You never know when you start a new project. How ambitious you're going to be, your institution's going to be in going to get people, and you don't know if the best people are going to be interested in coming to you. But if there were going to be two draft picks to cover the Dodgers, I would have taken Jack Harris and Dylan Hernandez to do it, and that's exactly who we got. Jack's been at the LA Times for 7 years, four of them covering the Dodgers. Dylan's been at the LA Times for 18 years, seven covering, I believe, was it eight covering the Dodgers, 10 as a columnist. We got the number one and two draft choice. I think people, if they're interested in sports in specific and the Dodgers, I mean sports in general and sports the Dodgers in specific, we're going to do great on the Dodgers because of Dylan and Jack. And so congratulations, guys, and we're excited that you joined the team.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I don't know, maybe like a number one draft pick that's like a little under slot, I think, to modestly, but no, I think this is really exciting for me, and I know for Dylan to have a chance to kind of keep covering this team that we've been around, that is so important and interesting in the larger context of baseball and the LA market, and to be able to do it with kind of like a blank slate, and a chance to think cover it in more innovative, more creative, more interesting ways that'll resonate with people. So this team gives us a lot to write about for sure. And yeah, it's exciting to kind of have this new home to cover them from.
Well, I do want to make things clear here. I was the first pick, right? And Jack was
Oh God, Dylan, you're the best.
Well,
no, but in all seriousness,
Jack was our first pick, but
like I said,
but you were like Luca. We jumped in and traded for you to give the LA motif perfection here.
and I'm obviously really excited about this, but to me, like really what really made me happy, right, was to get the endorsement of you two guys, Joel and John. Not that we necessarily write for our colleagues or anything, but you guys know this business more than anybody, and I started covering the Dodgers in 2007, and since then, you two guys really kind of helped set the standard, I feel, for baseball writing in this country. So for you guys to, endorse our hirings and for me to now get to be a teammate of yours, that to me is the most exciting part here. And, Jack and I will get to work pretty soon here.
Tommy, just for what it's worth, that's the social media clip right there. If you need to make a social media clip, that's as nice as it's going to get. And by the way, we might just end the damn show right here also. So.
Dylan number one in brown nosing.
That's me. Jack, he's moved ahead of you. Since we're making it about ourselves, I'm going to give a piece of trivia about myself that Joel guessed immediately, as nobody else will in the world, but Joel knew. January 26th is the important date in my life, the 52nd anniversary of something. Can either of you guess what that is? And we're starting the California Post on January 26th. That's more important.
Sadly, I guessed this on first shot.
Well, you're Jewish, so it was my bar mitzvah. So I don't think either one of you would probably know that. Neither was you. Neither was invited. And I apologize for that. Let's get to the Dodgers. We'll get off of all of us. And when does it end? Tucker, they needed to add a $60 million. I can't even believe he's $60 million, but I guess, Ohtani's the gift that keeps on giving. I don't know. We'll start with Jack, since he's the beat guy, Dylan the columnist. But is there an end to this? Can they stop at some point? Can they go to 500 million, 600 million? The owner's side is looking to put a cap on things. If they do, would they ever get out of it at this point? But the main question is there an end? Is there a budget for the Dodgers?
In a world without a salary cap, not really. At least not as long as they have Shohei Ohtani, and he's one of the premier players in the sport. I mean, like you said, this the Dodgers have always been a big market team with big revenues, and since this Guggenheim ownership group bought them, a big TV deal. But the thing that's changed the last couple of years is this Ohtani contract. I mean, he's making 2 million per year. I think Forbes estimated like their revenue jumped 200 million in 2024, his first year with the team. So they're getting all that money. They're getting to defer the rest of it. And to their credit, and this is the thing, like they would say is they're pouring it back into the team, right? And the way they look at it is they can afford to be spending, 400, to have $400 million payrolls, to be spending into the 500s when you account for the luxury tax. They feel like if they continue to build a winning team and continue to win or compete for World Series, then like the financial picture is only going to continue to look better in future years. And I think this offseason you've seen where they can be dangerous. Because the one thing they still don't want to do is tie up, super long-term deals with Kyle Tucker. If he had gotten a 10-year, $450 million offer from someone else, he wouldn't be a Dodger because they made it clear early on in his free agency process, they were going to be short-term. Their preference is really not to even go past 3 years. I think part of that is because there is some like accounting for, well, if there is a salary cap, and we do have to adjust at some point, they don't want to have that long-term risk. But once it became clear he was going to be available on a shorter-term deal, this is a guy that they liked who filled a need, but it's also not like they went through this whole offseason saying, oh, we must get Kyle Tucker. And the fact that at the end they were still willing to spend $60 million a year on him anyway, to have a huge signing bonus up front, to only defer 30 million of it, is a good reminder that, when this team gets in some of these financial situations for top free agent players, they can really do, if it's on a short-term basis, they can do whatever they want almost to get guys. And that's what makes them, I think, so unique and kind of puts them in this position that's great for them and really troubling for the rest of baseball, because it does feel like right now, as long as they can get guys on shorter-term deals, same thing with them with Diaz, like they're going to be able to keep spending.
Dylan, any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, and I don't know, I'm not too familiar with your audience, how many degenerate card players there are here, but I kind of compare it really. They're the big stack at the poker.
This is the New York Post. There's plenty of degenerate card players, my friend.
I kind of figured, right? So they're the big stack at the poker table right now, right? And like Jack said, they're not going to go in kind of right. That doesn't mean you play every hand. That said, right, if something kind of right, the price of entry, so to speak, is kind of low enough, they throw their chips into the middle of the table. And to me, what was really illustrative of that is, they signed Tanner Scott last year, 72 million, I think it was. Doesn't go well at all, right? And usually at that point, most teams are just kind of like, okay, we just sunk all this money into this closer who's no good. We're going to have to find a different way to find a way to finish games. What do these guys do? They just they're able to play another hand the next year, right? And it doesn't hurt them. As much as, and look, this is a well-run organization. I don't want to take anything away from the Dodgers. That said, this idea that they don't make any kind of mistakes, that's not true either, right? They had Conforto last year in the outfield. It didn't work out. Now, it's just when you kind of take, again, all the things that they are doing right, and you kind of combine that with the financial might, they're able to really kind of paper over the few mistakes that they do make.
Yeah, you know what's interesting to me, Dylan? You mentioned Conforto, you mentioned Tanner Scott. I look, it's better to have a great offseason than a bad offseason, but I would argue the Blue Jays and the Dodgers might have had the crappiest offseasons of all teams in baseball last year, and they played in the World Series. And we're like sitting here going, why aren't the Mets and Yankees doing more? And so anyway, Dylan, why don't we start with this? Is the one thing that is kind of left on the table for the team that like gorges itself and wants everything is, will they do another starting pitcher? And the two obvious trade guys out there are Peralta, who I think is very, very available. And the question is Skubal really available, and what would it cost? I wonder what you think about them getting a starting pitcher. And at this point, why stop? I mean, if you've pissed off everybody, just go get Skubal and like Michael Corleone final scene it and settle all scores here.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would do, right? And the fact that we're kind of seeing Peralta stuff kind of leak out, right, in recent days, almost makes me think that that's actually where they're looking at is Skubal, right? The Andrew Friedman's kind of likes the misdirection stuff. I wouldn't be surprised at all. And right now, really the Dodgers, look, it's hard to win a World Series, but they're also, not just competing, I think, against the teams that are, playing right now. They're competing against history, right? And, you get Skubal now, all of a sudden you start talking is this one of the greatest teams of all time, if not the greatest team of all time? And I think that's got to be pretty appealing, because I think, while, we can point to, right, Andrew Friedman being kind of very rational and even Stan Kasten to some degree, ultimately the owner is the one that's going to kind of decide this. And, I just kind of remember people telling me, when Mark Walter first showed up with Guggenheim, and they had like a little team party in Chicago. And I guess he was telling people, hey, you know what I want? I want an all-star at every position, right? Basically, where the National League All-Star team would just be the Dodgers. So this is a guy that doesn't mind, he obviously likes to kind of dream. That's kind of why you buy teams. And again, if his appetite for that is here, and I'm guessing that, again, he's probably closer to an average fan, than again the people that actually running the team. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they go in that direction. I think they should go in that direction. Again, you look at also, as well regarded as the Dodgers farm system is, if you look at guys that actually became stars during this whole time during their ownership, it's been right Walker Buehler that they drafted and developed, Walker Buehler and Will Smith. They have a lot of guys that turn out to be good players. But you know what? When you're one of these teams that's trying to kind of compete every year, it's hard to break guys in, and so yeah, I mean, honestly, I am not a like let's hoard the prospects type of guy. I am, trade them, get the sure thing, and I think Scuba would be a really interesting addition there.
Yeah, Dylan, Dylan's already writing for us and wrote a great column on the Rams game. So a very versatile guy, couldn't do that. And in your column, and you kind of hinted at it just now, you suggested that the Rams front office is even better than the Dodger front office. That Ram front office, I know nothing about. It must be pretty good, but what are your overall thoughts? I know obviously they made a couple mistakes, and Joel and I have gone over. We don't love the Tucker deal, even though Ohtani is the gift that keeps on giving, and they can do it. We don't see Tucker as a superstar. We see him as a great complementary player, not the guy who should be making as much as the other four great position players combined, at least in take home. What are your overall thoughts on the Dodger front office? Is there something else that you don't think is that great? I mean, they have won 2 World Series in a row. We got to give them credit, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't write that to disparage the Dodgers front office at all. It's just that the Rams operate in a salary cap league. They won a Super Bowl, kind of trading away their draft capital for established players. And kind of when the league started copying them, they kind of went another way, and they might have another Super Bowl team doing it a completely different way, building to the draft. And right, the way they kind of hit on their draft picks. I mean, they lost the greatest defensive player, arguably of all time, in Aaron Donald, and they were able to kind of replace him, just through numbers. And I think it really speaks to, the football acumen of Sean McVay, Les Snead, the fact that they kind of keep getting all the right coaches. I think the way they're doing their outreach in the city, understanding that, the NFL wasn't in this market for decades, and people aren't going to be fans and stuff. Now, as far as the Dodgers go, I will give them credit for this. I think kind of in the first, until they won the World Series in 2020, they really kind of were doing the buy in bulk, right? Prioritize the depth. They had these teams that were really geared towards winning in the regular season. And I think when they got to that offseason where they eventually got Mookie Betts, I think they understood, okay, you know what? Stars are going to be the ones that take you over the top in October. And so we've kind of seen a pivot, right? And, there are downsides to that too. We saw last year in the regular season, guys get hurt now. This isn't like it was before where basically the guy, right, the other half of the platoon is just as good. I mean, now you kind of have a bunch of everyday players. I actually give them a lot of credit for making that pivot, right? Because now it's been Freddie Freeman, right? They obviously, the Ohtani thing. They're going after kind of top guys. And I do think you have to kind of give them credit for that. I do think, one thing I mean, I guess if I were to criticize them at all, it would be the fact that I think sometimes they fall in love with their prospects a little too much. Bobby Miller right now is a bad minor league reliever. A couple, off seasons ago, had you traded him, I mean, right, he projected potentially into an ace. They could have had a big return there. Gavin Lux, they probably held on to for too long also. And so, but at this point, we're kind of splitting hairs, right? I mean, like you said, they've won 2 World Series. It is a results dominated business, and as much as, when they were losing, they used to love to talk about process. And I'm kind of like, well, the process really doesn't matter if it doesn't result in anything, and now I would actually kind of go to the other way, right? In that, hey, look, the results are there. I can sit here and say, like last, in 24, when, Flaherty was kind of their one, big trade deadline pickup. I was like, they should have done more. You know what? Screw whatever I said. I mean, they won. So, they kind of get the last laugh there.
We talk about how star-laden they are. They have a ton of stars, and then there's Ohtani, right? Ohtani hovers over not just the Dodgers, but the whole sport. And as two guys who have been around him a whole lot now, there's still so much mystery about this guy. Do you think Shohei Ohtani, if we sat him down, and you think he can name his 25 teammates? You think he cares? Tell us something about Shohei Ohtani. Is he just hey, I'm the best. I show up. I work a ton at it, but I am an individual contractor and I do my thing and it's spectacular. Jack, start with you. Tell us something. Tell us something about this man of mystery who's the most important player in the sport and famous, and yet we still don't know a lot about him.
Yeah, I think kind of the way you paint him isn't too far off of how it is. Look, the thing that the Dodgers have appreciated about Ohtani is that for all of the attention, the media coverage, the circus that, accompanied him when he arrived with the team, is that he's been pretty easy to deal with for most people around the organization because he is so kind of single-minded on, I'm going to come in, I'm going to do my work. I know what my process needs to be, whether it was during his pitching rehab, whether it was as he was getting reacclimated to being a two-way player last year. It'll certainly apply this year as he goes back to full-time two-way duties for his first time as a Dodger. He knows what he needs to do and doesn't really, kind of stays in his own world about it. Now, I think the one thing, and really this became a thing after the whole Ipe Mizuhara gambling theft story. But like one of the interesting things that people even now talk about with him is that before all that happened and he had his, Ipe, his interpreter with him, he was harder to get through to. And really since then, coming out of all that, because he's been, he hasn't had like that firewall of somebody to kind of run interference between different people in the organization. Like he's just been a lot more open about things, which is what you hear from Dodger people. But yeah, there is still a lot of, mystery about just a lot of different parts. He's a very private person. I think even with, teammates and people in the organization, it's not like he's opening up a ton, but at the same time, he's funny enough to people. He cracks jokes. He keeps it lighthearted. So like he's somebody that guys enjoy being in a clubhouse with, even if I think, there is still, guys don't maybe know him as well as you would, know your average teammate.
Dylan, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I just want to throw in, Dylan is, one of the reasons he was our Luca. We traded for him after we took Jack first in the draft. Is you have the unique ability. You speak English. You could speak English, Spanish, and Japanese. So you have a little thing maybe where I'm wondering what your insight is to the player.
Yeah. So I'll say this. So the first time I met him was in 2017. He was still playing for the Nippon Ham Fighters. They came out to Arizona for spring training before, MLB spring training started. I talked to him for maybe 10 minutes there. Later in the year, I went back to Japan actually to follow him around for about a week. And I'll say this, and my Japanese is really good, by the way. Not to anything. No, like I went to my mom sent me to this like Saturday Japanese school and this wasn't like we're going to teach you Japanese. This was like for kids whose parents were here on business, right? And so when they went back, after like 3 years here, they could just slide right back into school over there, right? And one of the guys, actually, one of my classmates, turned out to be the Yu Darvish beat writer for the wire service over there, right? So, and I just kind of wanted to make the point that I'm fairly culturally fluent as well, and in all this time that I've known him, I never have felt that I've had like a human to human conversation with him. It's always been athlete to reporter, and that's very rare. Honestly, it's never happened with any other Japanese player like that. Yamamoto already, I think I know him pretty well, right? And usually it's because at some point these guys kind of need me, right? In that after the Astro sign stealing scandal broke, Yu Darvish contacted me saying, "Hey, I got some things to say. Would you mind writing this in English for me?" And so, he has never kind of shown any kind of interest at all. I think I'm pretty hilarious in Japanese, actually. Yet he hasn't shown any
And
interest
you're
at all.
humble in English. That's
Well, because so I have since we're promoting stuff here, I have a Japanese podcast that I do with three Japanese reporters. It's called 50/50. So if you speak Japanese, please watch it. I think people think it's really funny. And honestly, again, I think Yamamoto started coming into my orbit because he started watching the podcast and he liked it, and so I don't know him at all. Now I do think he does know the name of every guy on his team because he's extremely smart. The one thing that I was really glad that I was able to do in 2017 was I visited his high school, right? And I spoke to his coach, who was also the guy who coached Yusei Kikuchi, and his own son, Rintaro Sasaki, who's now at Stanford. Right. And this is like a place that's, they produce like 10 pros and stuff. And, he was able to kind of give me some insight kind of into who the kid was. But yeah, he's extremely private. I do think he's very pleasant to everybody. He probably has with all his teammates, very kind of, he's very pleasant to everybody, but the relationships I'm guessing are fairly superficial, right? I think nobody knew that he was like dating anybody and everybody was obviously surprised when he got married. There is kind of a cultural thing to that, but, yeah, I don't, and what is kind of interesting to me and what I do kind of like about him, it's annoying as a reporter, but, we've all written these stories, right? We visit a guy in the off season, hey, come watch me work out for a day. And, you write about how hard the guy's working. And that's a bit of a hedge, right? Because you're trying to appeal to the fans like, hey, if things don't go well, hey, at least they're going to know that I work really hard, The one thing about Ohtani, as far as I know, and I know some, right, there's a reporter covering him who's covered him since he graduated from high school. Nobody, as far as I know, has seen him work out, And what that kind of tells me is it's kind of like he's wagering everything on the results, right? Hey, I don't need all this stuff. I don't want you to tell people how hard I'm working. Just judge me on the results, And right, even coming off that COVID year, when he batted, I think under 200 in that shortened season, there wasn't any, right? He didn't come out saying like, "Hey, I'm working hard. I'm trying this or that." It's just really kind of, judge me on the results. And I think that kind of strength and that type of determination we kind of see in these big moments, right? I mean, you go back through Ohtani seasons, usually, right, with guys that win MVPs, there may be like, a few moments that really kind of stand out. I remember, 24, Jack and I were going through like Ohtani's big moments, and there were like 15 of them, right? That I think that anybody that was there seeing it at that game would remember for the rest of their lives. And so, yeah, you're right. He's a complete mystery. I've never seen anybody quite like this, right? I'm trying to think of just kind of all these like star players that we know. I mean, I guess Messi maybe in soccer, right? Who just kind of just doesn't seem to like talk very much, but yeah, it's definitely different.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that you speak Japanese. Dylan also speaks Spanish fluently, and that's why, beyond the fact that he has great opinions and willing to share them, not just about himself, but about the teams that he covers as well, that's why he's such a great hire. And I'm sorry, I'm sure you guys at this point are probably Otani'd out from all the coverage, but I'm going to follow up a little bit. I know he's a mystery. I get that. What's your guess as to what happened with that first translator? I find it odd that he had no idea. And I get he's going to be a billionaire, and 17 million isn't like it is for us. But I'm still don't get that he wasn't missing the 17 million, and somebody else had to find out that this guy took 17 million dollars from him. What do you think? Is he so hyper focused on baseball and he just doesn't know anything about anything else? That'd be my guess. I don't know. And by the way, I have interviewed the new translator, and I don't know if he's a great translator, but he does seem like he's on the up and up. And I did ask him if he bets, and he said no, he does not bet at all. That's Will, very nice guy. What's your thoughts on Ohtani? I mean, is he that oblivious about everything else in his life?
Yeah. So obviously we so this story broke right before the opener in 2024. The Dodgers were in Korea. I got a call from, and actually before I went to Korea, I dropped by Japan to do a couple stories. And I remember getting a call from the Metro desk, and they were kind of explaining to me, like, right, there are these bank transfers with his names on them, and that he seemed to bet a lot on soccer. And I just kind of remember thinking that that doesn't sound right. The previous year, the LA Galaxy, the local soccer team, had signed Maya Yoshida, who was a captain of Japan's national soccer team. And the Angels had him come out and throw out the first pitch. And, usually if it's a big celebrity type guy, Otani will stop and say hello. Otani just like walked by him. And, the Japanese media, they were all cackling, right? Oh, he disrespected him, this and that. And I was like, I don't think he knows who he is, you know? And the thing is, there's an interesting story that I heard. So when he was in Japan, right? So in Japan, you only have one minor league team. And they for the most part, they practice with a big team. It's just on game days, they kind of go separate. And for the guys that are on the minor league team or like rookies, they have dorms, right, at the practice facility. And usually you're there for a year or two. Once you establish yourself, you move out. Otani never left, right? And because his thing was, hey, why would I leave here? Like, if I want to practice, I just go outside. They feed me 3 times a day. Like, what more do I need? And his high school coach was telling me, like, hey, like, don't you want a girlfriend? Like, don't you want to go, get your own place? He never wanted to move out. And this is kind of ironic because his mom saw this coming, evidently. His mom was so worried that he would grow up to be financially illiterate that so his paychecks were getting direct deposited, evidently, into his parents' bank account. And so she was so worried about this that she actually created a little, checking account for him. And she just deposited like $1,000 a month just so, he'd be familiar with that stuff. Evidently, she checked it, 6 months to like a year later, and the amount had actually increased because it had accrued interest, and so he had never touched it. So you know what? To me, the story that he didn't know, to me, it kind of fits, right? Unless all the way back in 2017 they knew, hey, you know what? He has a gambling problem. We gotta come up with this elaborate ruse for this American reporter that's visiting here for when he gets in trouble. To me, honestly, it all kind of fits. Now I wouldn't be surprised if the story, right? So this is kind of complicated to explain, but so I reached out to MLB obviously as soon as I got to Korea. So I think that things started kind of moving there on their side in terms of like, okay, what are we dealing with here? And at some point, ESPN already kind of, I guess, had known about this for months. I don't think they had taken it to MLB yet or anything. I'm not really sure where they were on this. But they had Ipe actually sit down with a reporter from ESPN, and the story that he gave was, "Hey, I did all this, and Otani agreed to repay my debt." Right, and I wouldn't be shocked if that's what happened. Right now, the problem is that in Japan, it's a much less forgiving society than here. Right, like I just remember like a couple trips ago when I was there, an actor got caught smoking weed, and next thing you know, he's in front of his lawyer's office on his knees, head down, begging for forgiveness in front of like a bank of cameras, right? And like that guy was like never heard from again. Like you get nailed with like tax evasion, like you are gone. You get wiped from society. And the one thing is,
You need to bring that back here, man.
and the one thing there, is that you don't associate with lepers, so to speak, right? Now, look, if somebody's willing to wipe out like a $17 million debt, right? I would view him, and I'm sure you guys would too. That's a great friend, right? I mean, my friends won't even like forgive $30 debts, right? Like, and so. But I think in Japan, just kind of being associated with somebody like that can be very damaging, right? And like as soon as like that scandal broke, he had an endorsement deal with a bank. They paused their endorsement deal. They stopped running commercials. So it could have been that they realized, hey, you know what? This is going to have outside ramifications. Even if it's just like, hey, you weren't involved in this, you're just covering the guy. There could have been commercial ramifications for that. So it wouldn't shock me if that's kind of the story, right? And they kind of settled eventually for this. Or no, I didn't have any idea until he said it in the clubhouse type thing. But like again, the feds looked into this, and the one thing that it did show was that he did not log into his bank account from at least his cell phone, right? So again, to me, all these things kind of fit, right? We've seen just from everything that I've heard, everything fits at least.
Was
Yeah.
as a way of wrapping this up, I wonder, Jack, you're there day to day for multiple years now. This seems they're the two-time defending champions. They've won three since 2020. They seem to have gotten better this offseason with Tucker and Diaz. If it went wrong, how would it go wrong?
Well, there's always the pitching injuries, and I think that is probably the primary concern this year. Is you just look at how hard they had to push, especially their rotation last October. Like that's the big difference going into this year compared to coming off of the World Series against the Yankees. And even that, last year their bullpen looked really run down after being used heavily in the 24 postseason. So I think the rotation, and that's why, when it comes back to Freddie Peralta or Tarek Skubal or why they're still poking around on the starting trade market. I think that's probably part of it is feeling like, well, we could still use a little more depth, a little more insurance here if we can find a deal. And then there's the general aging of the roster. Kyle Tucker, theoretically is going to help address this a lot. Getting another, middle of the order bat that's under the age of 30, that's in the prime of his career that you'd expect, if anything, maybe to be even a little bit better than he's been previously. But everybody else in this lineup, outside of like Ohtani and Will Smith, Freddie Freeman, didn't completely look right last year coming off the ankle injury he had in 24. And he's going to be, 36, 37 now. Mookie Betts, obviously, for as good as he did going to shortstop, had a career worst season at the plate and is getting into his mid 30s. Max Muncy is back, but has, had a lot of time missed with injuries the last few years. So there's probably a world where the rotation gets decimated and the lineup just isn't quite good or consistent enough to make up for it for them to be like 100+ win team. But it's still really hard to envision any scenario where they're at least not making the playoffs. And if they do, like we saw last year, they can be pretty mediocre for a lot of the regular season. And as long as they have their star players healthy and kind of lined up going into October, then they can look like a very different team.
Well, it's going to be a great story again to see if they became the first team to repeat since the 98 to 2000 Yankees. We'll see if they're the first team to three-peat. If you're interested in that, there's going to be an obvious place to go. It's thecaliforniapost.com, or you can actually still buy a physical newspaper out in California. And you should go there because Jack and Dylan are going to be the best at this. I'm sure of it. We hired the best guys. They don't have a start date yet. They're going to also be doing a vodcast at some point soon. And if you liked what you heard here, you'll be getting a lot more of it on that. Guys, we're thrilled to have you as teammates. We look forward to John and I are both going to be out in Arizona at some point during spring training. We look forward to seeing you out there. I think we're going to see you. I'm going to see you at least at the awards dinner on Saturday night. Ohtani's getting his MVP from the BBWA. Guys, congratulations. Thank you so much for joining the team, and we're looking forward to it.
Thank you. I think we got our clip there.
Yeah.
I think that clip was better than mine at the beginning. So
That's
no,
the
but thank
second
you.
clip. That's the second clip. Thank you, guys. All
Thanks,
the best.
guys.
Thank you.
John and I are, of course, excited to have Dylan and Jack as colleagues and that they were nice enough to join us on the show. We thank them for that. John, hit or error here. I wonder if I could go first because I don't know if it's a hit or error. And I I mean, my respect for you is obvious, right? We've been friends, good friends for a long time and colleagues in a couple of different places. Um, I don't know, is it a hit or an error that people are voting for so many more guys on the ballot? And I asked you because I was surprised by your ballot, that you had, I believe, eight guys on
Nine.
nine guys on your ballot. And it was like you went to places I didn't anticipate you would go. And I'm not asking this in a
Yeah, no.
I'm not sure I'm doing this right anymore. I had two guys on my ballot, and I feel like I stretched for two. Like I've gone beyond what I think was historically a Hall of Famer to get. I thought Beltran was over the line, no matter how I voted ever. I think Utley is a guy who's over the line for me, how I think about it now. Do I have to go another half a percentage and be like the guys who I'm sitting borderline with now, like the Pedroias, Jimmy,
Felix.
Jimmy Rollins, Felix, maybe I'm too stuck in a old way of thinking and I should open this up because clearly it feels to me like, John, would you have done this ballot 10 years ago? Like, have you evolved to a place? And I wonder if so, like, I don't know whether to give people who are doing this a hit or error. So I'm going to give
Yeah.
the forum for hit or error here.
Well, I better give it a hit since I voted for 9, but I get it. It certainly have evolved. I wouldn't have done this ballot, 20 years ago or whenever I started doing ballots. When I did 6, I thought that was a lot one year. I probably did an average of 4, and there were bigger ballots than this one. This obviously was not a spectacular ballot. There was one super obvious candidate for both of us, and that was Beltran. I thought Andrew Jones was a Hall of Famer. I'm glad those are the two that got in. Those were the two I think most deserving of the group. But yeah, I'm now evolved, and I certainly grade peak. I certainly take into account position. I am a little bit easier, I think, than I had been on catcher. I think in center field we've been a little bit too tough. I'd like to see Edmund. I don't know if Edmonds, Bernie Williams, and Kenny Lofton are Hall of Famers. I didn't vote for them when they were on the ballot. I might now. I don't like that 5% rule. I think that should be out. Either that or don't limit it to 10. Although if you don't limit it to 10, Morosi will vote for everybody on the ballot. So, I love John. I love JP. So, yeah, I get it. I'm not sure if that's a hit or an error. I'm going to give an error or two. One is to me, and I'm sorry on this. To me, Jimmy Rollins should be a Hall of Famer. I think he started with almost nothing, right? He did get over 5% at the beginning. It's evolving, and he feels like he's going in the right direction. But I'm not sure why he's 40% below Utley. You obviously think Utley's a little over, and Rollins is a little under, and 40% of people agree with you. So I think Rollins is under.
He's my toughest borderline, John.
Yeah,
I hover over him every year because I think he was. You know who he's very similar to me? You mentioned, I think we've been tough on center fielders. And by the way, uh, to me, Lofton, Edmonds, and Bernie are better players than Andrew Jones. Like I would, if you said those 4 guys are on a ballot and I had to start ranking them, the other 3 would get ahead. And maybe in the way I'm thinking, I would vote for all 3 now. And I'll tell you a guy who, like, obviously the analytic world hates, and he fell off the ballot quickly. To me, Jimmy Rollins is very much like Johnny Damon. Like you had to watch it a lot where you're like, this guy is such a winning player. Like he just does so many good things. Then Rollins' defense was better than Damon's defense in center field. But like their speed, a little power, and just hey, it's a big at bat. I love that's who's up. Like John Damon or Jimmy Rollins.
Yeah, I thought Rollins was a great defender. I know he only won, I think, 3 or 4 Gold Gloves, but I think he was a great defender. He was a leader of a team that won a championship and came close, certainly in '09 against the Yankees. Was always in the playoffs in that group, and I voted for. I don't separate them, but again, we separated Whitaker and Trammell, and I don't know if that was the right thing to do either. The other thing is, and I know we talk about evolving, and I generally like the idea that people are evolving. I don't think it looks great that Andrew Jones had 7% of the vote when he started out, and I'm in favor of not knocking people off less than 5 because we do have this. But I've thought Andrew Jones is a Hall of Famer, so. I think we look funny. We now have 78%. We've gone from 7% to 78%. Everybody's minds change. I think social media, it's too much. There's too much. People are too easily influenced by what they read. I don't think you have to be as, I don't want to say stubborn, but as set as Rob Parker is. He votes for a guy and he's going to always vote for him. He doesn't vote for a guy, he's never going to vote for him. In a way, that's admirable, though. He knows what he likes. He's a small hall guy, and I think it works out that there are big hall guys like JP and there are small hall like Rob. And I think ultimately we get most of the guys in who should get in. I think it's a shame we didn't put Dave Parker in. It's a shame we didn't put Fred McGriff in. There are other guys that I think we should have put in. Mattingly, many. There's many, and I'm glad we have a veterans committee. I did think Kent was a Hall of Famer, although he wasn't my first choice on that ballot. I think they do the right thing, but it looks weird to me that somebody had 7% of the vote 5 years after he's retired, and now he's got 78. And again, I thought Andrew Jones a Hall of Famer. And now I kind of think I didn't vote for Bernie and I didn't Edmund. I think they're both Hall of Famers, and I wouldn't object to Kenny Lofton either. So I don't know, why are we tough on center field? That's the
I don't know.
most romantic, mystical position that there is, right?
John, in some way, I've covered the sport since the mid 80s, so that's 40 years. In those 40 years, the only two center fielders I covered, Kirby Puckett and Ken Griffey, were the only two who got in until yesterday, two more. And so I'm with you. I think that there was something almost mythical about like Willie, Mickey, and the Duke. It's literally a song, and Griffey. And we like made that the thing. And maybe we really, and by the way, that includes me. Like I notice how fallible my ballot could be when I'm like, you know what? Should I have calmed down? And Jim Edmonds is he's not Ken Griffey, but he's a Hall of Famer. Bernie
Right,
Williams,
Bernie. You know
Bernie
what? I didn't
Williams,
vote for Bernie. Bernie, I look at
Kenny
his
Lofton.
playoff.
Like,
Beltran to me was a Hall of Famer anyway, but the playoff certainly
season.
helps. I think Bernie, same thing. His bulk numbers in the playoffs are spectacular.
Yes.
I saw somebody on MLB. I don't remember, so I'm not going to say that Bernie was the best player on these teams. That's not true. We hopefully we didn't forget Derek Jeter. He was the best player, right? I mean, you were there, right? You were there every game.
Yes.
Derek Jeter is the best player, but just because you're the second best player on the greatest dynasty ever.
Well, look at it this way, John. Look at how many Braves who couldn't beat the Yankees.
That's what I was just going to say.
Like
the
all these
have
Braves
7
are
people.
getting in. They have better PR than the Yankees.
Yeah, what are the Yankees?
I always hear
Yankees
there's Yankee
Jeter,
bias.
What are they? There's no Yankee bias. Jeter, that's so ridiculous. Jeter,
Rivera, and Torrey. Right? Jeter.
Well, we got to count Tim Raines, right? And does Andrew Jones? No, Andrew Jones is after.
He was after, and Tim Raines was Hall of Fame case is from mainly Expos.
2.5. Then we got 2.5. I think the Braves had about 7, right?
Yeah.
The Sherholtz got in, right? And no GMs get in. I don't know.
I mean, ultimately, I think Cashman gets in.
Right.
At the point in the like when his career is over.
But how many GMs actually get into the Hall of Fame?
Not a lot.
Not a lot. Pat Gillick.
You know who should go in the Hall of Fame? Tommy Hogan.
I was going to get that. I knew that was coming.
Tommy Hogan for producers, who does such a great job for us week after week. Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, please rate and review us. Give us a view on YouTube. All this helps. Look, if you like our podcast, download us, rate and review us, give us some notes. We love it. And one more time, the California Post begins January 26th next week. We're going to have great coverage in general, but great Dodger coverage with Dylan Hernandez and Jack Harris, who are our guests this week in specific. So please do that and continue to stick with us on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman.